Unspoken Issues.
All right, here we go. Let's rock and roll. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Unspoken Issues podcast. We have returned. We're still celebrating the holidays, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be, I don't know, we actually have 2 episodes right now in the can. And this will be our 3rd holiday special because the guys, Chris and Evan, recorded Sleepwalker holiday special with me there a couple days ago. So this will be our 3rd holiday special. We are celebrating Christmas right here. The holidays are happening. And well, this one came from the brain of one Dean Compton, because usually that's where they come from. And I got to know, Dean, why are we choosing to talk about Batman Adventures holiday special from 1995 tonight?
Because it fucking slaps ass, bro.
Perfect answer.
Honestly, for real, it might be the best holiday special of all time. It's really, there's a cool, what's the word I'm looking for? Branding narrative across the whole thing. It takes place across the whole month. It's got a New Year's Eve story, which you don't have a lot of those in any holiday special. It's all most of it's done by Bruce Timm and Paul Dini, who are the primary movers and shakers behind the show. It's Batman the Animated Series. This is Batman Adventures, which is, I'm not sure that it necessarily takes place in the same continuity as the show, but it's obviously very inspired by the show and is at least loosely attached to it. It's just a romp. It's one of those comic books where it's not a bad moment, and it's fun thing to look at for the holidays. It's got some zany stuff. It's got some sad, poignant stuff. Whatever you're going to be feeling over the holiday season, whether it's Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, New Year's, Yule, Saturnalia, whatever you're doing, I think there's something in here that's going to tap into some of the feelings you've got from the very happy side of the holidays to the very sad side of the holidays. It's almost a 1-month roller coaster ride through the Batman villains mythos as well. You get a lot of different guys, and you get to see how they relate to the holidays. It's one of the best holiday specials of all time. Might certainly be the best one of the 90s. That's why I suggested it. I thought it'd be a lot of fun. And also, it's got the meme.
The meme.
Every New Year's Eve, when people are like, well, we survived another New Year's Eve. Hopefully we'll be doing this again next year. Hopefully. People post that every year on New Year's Eve, and this is where it comes from.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I actually got to agree with Dean 100%, because this, for 4 random holiday stories, this thing was so good. And I mentioned this to you guys before we started recording, that the show came around and said, okay, we're going to make an episode out of this. Because when I started reading this issue, I was like, oh, I've definitely read this before. And then the internet reminded me, no, you idiot, they adapted it into a cartoon that you watched numerous times. So
you just learned to read this week, so you didn't read this before.
It is absolutely true. There's no doubt there. But I'm with Dean. I mean, you want to talk about successful holiday specials. This thing was flawless going into it. And if you got any nostalgia for Batman the Animated Series at all, this thing's worth whatever you got to pay for it. I mean, it's great. It's just a really, really good comic book.
So it starts with the front. The cover is amazing, and it just really never lets up from there. Honestly, this would satisfy everyone. It's obviously done in the animated view, but it would satisfy anybody who is a fan of any era of Batman. If you're a Batman 66 person or a 70s Steve Englehart, Neil Adams, Denny O'Neil, Marshall Rogers Batman person, or even some of the more hardcore, edgier Batman. There's a couple edgy moments with Batman in here. So whatever Batman you like, I feel like you get at least a glimpse of it here.
Yeah, Dean's 100% right, because, I mean, there's a great Joker story in here where the Joker is like, I want to murder as many Gothamites as I can before midnight. It's real dark. It's real tense. But there's also a story in here that it might actually be the first time it ever happened, where Harley Quinn teams up with Poison Ivy and shenanigans ensue.
Right.
No one gets
right.
seriously hurt, but it's one of these things that became so popular that it got its own show. There's a show on Max right now that's just the 2 of them getting up to shenanigans. And then
King Shark represent.
Man, I love King Shark.
King Shark's great on that show.
But every one of these stories does something that I really like, which is it focuses on the villain. The only one that was not adapted into the show was one based on Mr. Freeze. I think it might actually be the best one out of the 4.
It is, but apparently it goes against show canon or something.
Oh, sure.
So-
I got to be honest with you. When it comes to BTAS, I just kind of assumed there were no long-term canon things that they could
I don't think there were at first, but then as it goes, you wind up. Obviously, when Batman the Animated Series started, they weren't like, motherfuckers, this is going to become the cornerstone of a cartoon universe that people are going to fucking watch until 2007. So we better lay this stuff out. I don't think it was until probably when they were wrapping up, because they kind of wrap up but then do some new episodes on the WB when it changes over. I don't think they really start thinking about that until that time, because then they're going to start doing Superman the animated series. Well, how is this going to go together? And that's one of the reasons I'm not sure that how much of Batman Adventures is canonical, because in issue 25 he meets long-haired Superman in the more in that style, which that guy was never in the DC animated universe. Mm-hmm. At the same time, what I would assume, and I can't say for sure, I'm sure it's like Steven Universe continuity. Are y'all aware of their rules?
No.
All right. So Steven Universe has the cartoon, and it has comic books, and there's also some novels, and there's video games. Basically, everything is canon as long as it doesn't contradict the cartoon. Anything that contradicts something that happened in the cartoon is not canon. So I would just kind of assume these Batman Adventures works kind of that way. If it doesn't contradict something in the cartoon, it's fine. If it does, then it didn't happen.
Those are Star Wars rules. I remember when the expanded universe started, Lucasfilm said something similar.
Okay.
All of this stuff is canon unless it contradicts something that is currently or one day will be in a movie, in which case it becomes non-canon. So that's interesting. Right. I didn't know that cartoon show did that too.
I mean, it's honestly a good rule. And everybody should kind of do that going forward, that it's like, hey, we have one thing. This is the one thing that is sacrosanct. We can never go against this. Now we can tell as many stories as we want without bug fucks like us being like, is it canon? Did that really happen? None of it happened, motherfucker. None of it. So when we get too upset about it.
It all happened. Hyper time, my friend.
Well, look out.
We'll discuss that some other time. But yes, it's possible that it all happened. But I think that's a good rule to kind of keep. And we're not those kind of people, but I think we all kind of used to be. I think it's a phase when you're a comic book or sci-fi person. You get hyper obsessed for a little bit in your fandom with what counts and what doesn't. Now I'm not. Now I don't care. Just give me something fun. But that's a good rule to throw at those people, to just keep them, just mess with this for a while. Don't ask me.
Agreed.
So this dropped in 95, and I was just looking because I did get some, and I doubt other than this one little thing that I'm going to maybe tie these things together, I don't think that they are actually tied together in any way. But Batman the Long Halloween, kind of, I remember reading those and how we were going by day up until we got, and then of course things started going by holidays. It's almost kind of like what I felt here when I was reading this, because we were starting out, it's just December 1st. I know that's
that's a great framing sequence for this.
And
it ties everything together without tying it together at all.
Right.
And that's something that I don't know that I've ever seen in another comic book holiday special. I'm not saying it hasn't happened, but it's not in any of the Marvel ones. It's not in the DCU holiday bashes I read. It's not in the Spider-Man holiday specials I've read. Was that, I don't think, I read the Sleepwalker holiday special you mentioned a long time ago. I actually bought it Christmas for my parents gave me money for Christmas, 7th grade. That was one of the things I got. Mr. Jip's one of the villains. I remember that. It doesn't have that kind of sequence. So I thought that was pretty neat. Let's tie these stories together, but not in a way to where it makes anything odorous. It's not like, oh, a purple diamond shows up in every one of them, and you kind of have to force it. It just makes it all feel like, I mean, as weird as this is going to sound for somebody who's like, none of it's real, it kind of makes it all feel like it happened.
I hear you.
We learned today, y'all. That Jesse has apparently watched little to no Batman the Animated Series. Now, I've watched at least, I don't know how many episodes are, like 96 or something. I've watched at least 70 of these episodes at one time or another. Darry, you same, right? People talk about this motherfucker like he's arguably the best cartoon of all time. Not superhero cartoon, not kid cartoon. It's compared to some of the better anime. Darry, can you believe that Jesse had never watched the majority of this?
I was shocked. I thought he was kidding at first. I had to read it a few times.
We both responded the same way in the group chat. Capital what?
I've been trying to figure out a good excuse as to why that was the case. And I think what I landed on was, Dean, you said it dropped in 92. It started in 92, ran up till, gosh, when was it? 90. Did you guys remember when it ended? 98?
97?
97. So
I can't put a time on it because, like you said, as it goes on, it wound up moving to WB, and I didn't have WB, so I've never really watched a whole lot of Superman the animated series. I've hit the high point. It wasn't accessible to me. Now I happen to get paid to watch a lot of Justice League, so lucky me.
Hey, look out. So, yeah, for myself, I think it was more along the lines of I just didn't have access to a television, and time was kind of spread thin. So it was one of those shows that I don't remember seeing either it had to have been advertised. If I picked up a comic.
It was advertised everywhere, Jesse. Jesus fucking Christ. They gave me a goddamn... You remember when people used to put things around their textbooks, book protectors?
Oh, yeah.
They gave me one of those at Kroger. I used it as a poster because I was cool.
All right.
It was everywhere. It came off it rode the tails of Batman Returns. How did you miss this stuff? It's like you missed you missed Ultraverse, and I know why. You were too busy reading Cyberforce. You were too busy with Ballistic.
Wait,
Killjoy.
When did
if only Impact had been on Batman the animated series, you'd have hauled your ass from your room to the living room to take a gander at that. If Heatwave had been there, or if Stryker had given Two-Face is like, I'm Two-Face. Like, well, does that make me four-armed? No, I'm Stryker. And he shot him. Like, you'd have been there for that. You'd have been there, Jesse, but you let Batman down. Let Bill Finger down.
Oh, that's rough.
I am sorry.
You don't know who Bill Finger is?
I know who Bill Finger is.
Okay, thanks. I was about to say, brother, you not only listen, don't let him down and then erase him from your memory.
Here's the thing.
You're not Bob Kane.
We have Batman the animated series.
I only like to talk about creators. Who'd you say?
Oh, look out. Wow. So our first episode of Batman the animated series, I think you're onto something here, Dean, because the first episode of Batman the animated series, probably not, September 5th, 1992. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cyberforce #1 dropped October of 1992. So you may actually be onto something.
It's probably... If you had gotten hooked though, Batman had enough lead-in time to keep you around, but you were just too you did watch X-Men though, which I did. Which that's another thing. You're like, I didn't really hear anything about Batman, dude. They advertise Batman all the time on X-Men, and vice versa. And actually, you would see Batman toy advertisements on X-Men because there's a law, and I'm sure I've talked about it before. We called it KidVid when I worked at Cartoon Network. If it's a Batman cartoon, you can't have an ad for a Batman thing on it. You can't have a Robin thing, a Joker thing, or anything like that. So where do you put it? You put it as close as you can. What does Fox have that's pretty close to Batman? The X-Men. And I know there's some people who would find that sacrilegious, but it's all superhero shit, people. I understand. Batman and the X-Men aren't the same, but they're in the same league here.
All right. They're comic book cartoons.
And vice versa. If you watch Batman, you would see a lot of advert promos for X-Men. And you would see, I saw advertisements for like the Toy Biz X-Men toys and stuff like that. X-Men Happy Meal, probably Underoos. Who knows? The world was limitless then as far as everything went. Russia was splitting up and the X-Men were on TV and we didn't know that was as good as it was going to get. The USSR was splitting up. Let me correct myself.
Enough about myself and Batman the animated series.
Enough about the USSR.
let me ask. I'm gonna throw some things at you guys because yes, I definitely wanted to talk about this tonight. So you guys clearly are big fans of this series, and I just kind of want to get an idea as to what drew you in to the series, and I want to know what is the one episode I should watch. And if you can't narrow it down to an episode, story arc, whatever.
No, I think we know which one it is.
Okay. All right, then. So, Darry, I want to give you the floor, man. Tell me first why. I mean, this is 92, so I'm trying to think of you as little Darry, sitting on the TV.
Oh, my God. LD.
Tell me all about it. Why did this series speak to you?
Oh, this series is perfect. I don't have the words to describe why you like it, but the episode you should watch, literally when we're done, is Almost Gotham.
Almost.
That's probably it. If you're only going to watch
no
one,
question. Yeah, 30 minutes or 22 minutes, I guess, without commercials. All the classic villains are in it. It's done in one, and it's one of those ones where I've been online at Comic-Cons, and you start talking, and someone starts quoting it, and you're like, we both watched Batman as little kids. Now we're friends.
That's great. That's great. Dean, you had one yourself there that you kind of suggested in the chat. What was yours?
Well, I'm a Jonah Hex mark, so the idea that Jonah Hex would ever be on a cartoon is wild, but he's in an episode called... Right. But Showdown is an incredible episode,
really
and it's really tight.
Oh, and remember the ending? It's got a surprise ending? Oh, yeah, it's God. Great. Damn it,
it's good stuff.
Oh.
The reason that Batman the Animated Series is so good is, first off, it rode the wave of the second Batmania for Batman Returns, which, while not as substantial as the 89 Batmania or the 66 Batmania, was still quite fervent. There was a lot of Bat stuff. There was still Bat fever. I bought Topps Batman Returns Stadium Club cards. Watch out. They were expensive, but they were glossy. Glossy, I tell you. That made them important. So it had a lot of eyeballs on it already. Fox wanted it to do well. What's her name? Margaret Lush. She was in charge at this point of Fox programming. She had been in charge of Marvel animation. And when she came over, she was the one who got the X-Men on. And this was something they wanted to work. She wanted in particular prove that you could make kids programming that would appeal to everyone. So when they got the guys together to make it, they came up with an incredibly sleek, aerodynamic, retro future look that will just be timeless, because it doesn't, it looks like the 30s, but it sort of doesn't. It also looks like the retro future 50s, but it also kind of looks like it could be maybe even a little later. It uses technology, blimps and stuff in a way to where you're, that's pretty neat. The police have blimps. You rarely see a chopper. It's always these guys like rappelling out of blimps. It looks good. These guys wrote an incredible Bible. Every villain and everyone they use is incredibly true to character. Like, for me, this is Batman. This is the archetypical Batman for me. Everything else.
That's important.
And all the villains are kind of like that archetypical one. The characters they create, Renee Montoya and Harley Quinn, wind up becoming very important later. Like, Harley Quinn is arguably the most important character, DC character created in the 90s. DC didn't even create her. So then on top of that, you have incredible voice acting. The late Richard Mole, Mark Hamill. Why am I sleeping on Batman's name? Kevin Conroy.
Very good.
You got R.I.P.
Also the late Kevin Conroy.
I said R.I.P. I followed it up with R.I.P. I forget everyone who's on there. It is wild how great everyone just is. Who's Mr. Freeze? He's somebody hardcore, right?
I don't remember.
The lady who does Harley Quinn. I should know her name. She's very famous. Tara Strong?
Okay.
Is that somebody else? I can't remember. I get voice actors confused because you don't put a name with a face. You very rarely see their face. All of these performances are top notch. And then on top of it, it leads into an incredible universe in a way that you would never have thought. Like Superman the Animated Series, I haven't seen as much of it as I'd liked, but it's really good. Justice League. Listen, if Batman the Animated Series isn't the best cartoon of all time, it's Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. And you could argue they're better off the top. I hate to sound so gushing, but it's just really great. And it's effortlessly so. It appears to never be trying too hard or insisting upon itself. It just goes.
You're not alone in that sentiment. You guys aren't the first that have raked me across the coals for not watching the show.
I am the first person to put you on 90s probation, though.
Yes, that is for sure. Well, okay, so we've got an idea of your guys' love for the show, and this, just like Darry said, this is a comic that they adapted for the show. Let's go ahead and we'll get into this real quick. We'll talk about, what do we got? 5 stories here. I mean, if you want to call that 5th one a story, it's pretty cut and dry real quick. But this first one, Jolly Old Saint Nicholas, written by Paul Dini and Bruce Timm. Art and color by Bruce Timm and lettered by Richard Starkings / Comic Craft. It's the wintry hustle and bustle in Gotham City going on right now. Gotham City's December. The air is filled with festive spirit. Policeman Harvey Bullock, begrudgingly decked out as Santa, teamed up with Renee Montoya, his partner donned as Santa's trusty helper, on a mission to apprehend perpetrators wreaking havoc in a bustling department store. Their pursuit of thieves was momentarily halted by the long line of eager kids waiting to meet Santa. Barbara Gordon, known as Batgirl, stealthily patrols the store, watchful for any signs of trouble. As the scene unfolded, Barbara witnessed a young child surreptitiously pilfering wallets. Her attempt to apprehend the thief took an unexpected turn when the child's arm seemingly liquefied in her grasp. Montoya's...
Man, I wish I had known that trick. They'd have never caught me in Batesville. They'd have never caught me.
Montoya, she alerts Bullock that something's going down, and they decide to investigate further. To their astonishment, they discover that these children were merely fragments of the nefarious villain Clayface. Quick to act, Barbara swiftly retreats to a dressing room, transforming into her Batgirl persona. Chaos erupts as more officers converge on Clayface, who effortlessly subdues any attempts at police intervention. With Renee and Harvey, boy, about lost his name there. With Renee and Harvey in peril, facing Clayface's menacing axe-shaped appendage, Batgirl leaps into action.
Jesus Christ.
Appendage.
What makes that even funnier is the sound effect they use on the page is splooge. So
it is too.
There you go. There you go.
Her acrobatic maneuvers propel both her and Clayface through a window, hurtling them down onto the cold, wintry outdoors. Clayface lands in an ice rink, and the frigid waters instantly drench his malleable form. Seizing the opportunity, Barbara urges her comrades to act. With precision, they aim at a Santa decoration above, unleashing a cascade of electrifying lights that plunge into the water, rendering Clayface unconscious. While victory is actually in grasp, Harvey's elation was short-lived. Montoya grimly informs him that they still need to sift through Clayface to retrieve the stolen wallets, as all crucial pieces of evidence must be collected. Despite the triumph, the realization of this arduous task ahead cast a shadow over their hard-won success.
Well, again, everything in this, you're going to hear this again. This was fantastic. Pretty much perfectly done. A lot of fun. There's you get a fun scene of Batgirl trying to change in a dressing room. Also, that is the sexiest elf outfit I've ever seen at the mall. Renee Montoya is barely covered up. So, hey, this is a code-approved book, but they might have missed that one. You get to see Harvey Bullock pretend to be a grump, but then be a nice guy. When the daughter of somebody he sent up the river shows up, he's like, I can't make your dad home, come home, here's some money, gives her his donut money, he says. And I believe him. There's no way that guy has good budgeting ability. I don't believe that Harvey Bullock ever passed an accounting class. I just do not believe that at all. He was in Checkmate.
Was he really?
Oh, who wasn't at this point?
No, he was at the old Checkmate when they were knights and had
you're right. Okay.
When no one was in Checkmate. You're right. Now, who gives a shit? Like being an Avenger. This is a sidetrack, but y'all remember, I used to really think about guys being an Avenger and you would make this. It was like watching Bret Hart go from tag champion to IC champion to world champion. Aaron Judge coming as a rookie and then grow from there, coming really good, but you watch him get better and better. And then you would see the apotheosis of that journey is they're like, you're in the Avengers and Cap's shaking your hand and Thor's back there saying some shit. You're not listening to him. He's like, verily, thy valor has proven that. You're like, it's whatever, Thor. It's cool. Iron Man, being Iron Man. See, now everybody's Avenger. Who cares? Who cares?
Victim of their own success.
And if everybody does it, and everybody's special, nobody's special.
Funny, I always think the opposite. I always think when it comes to the Avengers, my favorite lineup is back in the 60s where the old guys quit and Captain America is like, all right, 2 child terrorists and a guy who once shot Iron Man with a bow and arrow. Congratulations. Yeah. You are the Avengers now, because Stan couldn't keep track of all the characters that had their own books, and he was like, absolutely not. But Dean's right. For the longest time, it was a big deal. It was like, oh, you made it. You made it to the Marvel Justice League. And now it's like everyone is a card-carrying member of the Avengers to the point where it doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't carry any weight. But there was that idea for a while that's like, if Cap needs you to punch Kang in the face, congratulations, you're on the team. That's
Get in here, Demolition Man.
Yeah, that's my boy. You had Demolition Man. You had Gilgamesh, who we know is a really big deal in continuity, but he should not have been on that team. So.
The other thing I was going to say is it's really cool that they let off with a Batgirl story. I like Batgirl a lot. I mean, I think she's really cool. I loved her from the 66 show. It's probably the first time I got, exposed to Batgirl. And it was neat to see her lead off and her to get a solo story. I wish if there's any complaint about this, it's that there's no Robin. But especially because you assume that this book is going to wind up in a lot of younger kids' hands. It's a holiday book that's kind of put out for, again, like we talked about on the Marvel 96 book. This is probably a book that you really try and get on the newsstand so that grandmas and aunts and uncles, oh, my niece or grandson likes Batman here. Well, Robin's a character that especially younger kids relate to. It would have been nice to see Robin in a story. But it's also cool that Batgirl got a solo story and she saves the day without Batman's help. And it's also very funny. Everything about this it's funny, the cartoon, where everything is serious, but there's still plenty of time to laugh. And that's kind of how I feel.
Yeah. Yeah. With Harvey, you said he was part of Checkmate. Yeah. Has he worked forwards or backwards here with what he's doing now in this book? It's
honestly probably forward, because who gave a shit about Checkmate back in the day? It's cool. I've got the poster right here or whatever.
I have an answer to that.
Visual, and I liked it, but if it was an album, it would have went plywood. Nobody bought it. So going from being in Checkmate to being prominently featured in what is arguably the greatest cartoon of all time and what has arguably been the inspiration for almost every Batman. Is there anything more inspirational Batman-wise other than The Dark Knight Returns than this that's inspired more people at this point? Maybe the Neil Adams stuff, maybe the Englehart Rogers stuff. I'm not so sure. I would say this and Dark Knight Returns are like neck and neck. You could argue this over Dark Knight Returns if you wanted. To me, so I think being in this is a step up from being in a book that 8 people bought. No offense to Checkmate. I was one of them. I liked it. I love that shit. Y'all know that. I love that covert superhero espionage. They fucked with the Suicide Squad and stuff. That's cool shit. But, everybody else went into it. Just me.
All right.
I wasn't even into it until it was done. So it ended in 1990. I didn't start collecting comics until 1992. I could not have saved Checkmate, Jesse.
No, you couldn't. No, you wouldn't have. I had a good time here, too. I mean, it's Clayface, it's Batgirl. Just like you said, it is interesting. They opened it with just a Batgirl story, which is great. As far as the characters versus what I'm used to reading in the comics, that doesn't feel like they're too far apart from what we normally see. So had a good time. I think the humor's there, especially at the end where Harvey realizes he's got to start digging through Clayface, which has got to be awkward.
Shoot the Santa was great too.
Shoot the Santa.
Shoot the Santa.
Yeah.
I'm laughing out right now, obviously, but I literally did it when I read it.
You wouldn't.
Right.
He's waiting for Montoya to turn the gun on him.
Well, he was in Checkmate. He's ready for dirty dealings, right?
But it's funny too, because when he was in Checkmate, they hadn't had the show yet, so most people didn't know who he was. In the comics, he was kind of a schmuck for the longest period of time. And then when the show came out, they were, Commissioner Gordon needs cops to talk to. You got to have other cast members. So they introduced Renee Montoya, who's gone on to be one of the biggest Batman supporting characters in history. And then they gave
the question.
That's right.
That's stupid. But they gave.
I agree. I don't like it as far as the character going on to do things. She was the question, and we can't take that away.
Oh yeah, I'm not a big fan. She's still popular for a variety of reasons. It's like that time Punisher was the angel. It's like that's not what I'm going to lead with if I'm trying to give someone a good story featuring the character. Yeah.
We're the hardcores preaching to the hardcores. So
we are. This is one of my favorite openings. It's the art in all 5 stories in this comic are amazing. They used the storyboard artist from BTAS. So again, it wasn't just a tie-in issue. This was made by the people doing the cartoon. I mean, this was amazing. And there's this
That's what I told you when you were like, did I see this? And I was like, I don't know if you did or not. I couldn't remember. If you felt like you did, it's because the guys who made them made these. Yeah. So you couldn't have gotten closer to that feel unless you literally somehow cast a magic Doctor Strange spell and changed a cartoon into a comic book, which seems like a waste of that kind of magic. Go on, Darry.
But the first page has a multi-panel gimmick where Batman is flush with statues of angels on the building. It looks like a church or some sort of old Gothic building. And then he jumps, he leaps off, and he fades into the story proper. And it's It really is beautiful. It's very simple. It's got the contrary look of Batman versus the Angels, and it's the idea that he's the Dark Avenger, but he's actually going to come down and he's going to help you. And it cuts across multiple panels, and I just thought it was a great way to open it up. Again, you can see the influence of the storyboards because your mind animates it just by looking at it. I can hear the Shirley Walker theme. I can hear Kevin Conroy. It's a thing of beauty. And the way this story in particular is laid out with the half-page panels of Harvey Bullock, of the reveal of Clayface, the reveal of Batgirl. I mean, you almost don't need to read this thing. It's very, very well done.
The dressing room scene is crazy how they get action across there.
It's claustrophobic.
Right.
It feels like she's in the room, but again, she's heroic and she's quick and she's struggling. And then it opens up, it breathes, and then bam, Batgirl has arrived. And she kicks this shapeshifter in the face. She saves the cops. She saves the kids. She's immediately in full heroic mode. She figures out how to stop this Clayface in BTAS is a giant hulking supervillain. He's just straight up, I have superpowers. I want to rob things. He's almost like a Spider-Man character, and Batgirl figures a way to take him out with no problem. And it's great. And Dean already mentioned my favorite scene ever, which is Bullock giving this kid $50 because he just feels terrible that he had to put her scumbag father away in prison. And the other thing I really like about this is at one point when Clayface is revealed and Montoya just looks at him and just goes, Madre de Dios, which I thought was funny because she is Hispanic canonically, but I just thought that was a great little bit in the comics. So again, God, I love this. I love it so much. I love looking at it. I'm flipping through it again, and it's just, if I ever see this on the rack again, I'm going to buy it because it's great.
Let's get into our next About Said episode. The Harley.
You may as well, son.
Right.
There you go.
You may as well.
The Harley and the Ivy, story by Paul Dini and Ronnie Del Carmen, written by Paul Dini, art and color by Ronnie Del Carmen, lettered by Richard Starking's Comic Craft. All right. So, set in the wintry backdrop of December 11th. Hey, look at that, folks. It's December 11th today as we record.
And also, it's December 11th, so it's probably the start of Hanukkah, around the start.
Okay.
I didn't get that.
It's usually, I think this year it started on the 9th, maybe the 8th, but it's usually around this time. Not always. I think next year it actually starts on Christmas. So.
Okay.
But
set in the wintry backdrop of December 11th, Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy found themselves seeking a remedy for their holiday doldrums.
Paws and Ivy.
Paws and Ivy.
Paws and Ivy. That's like if there was a DC world where they were all the Berenstein Bears. That's what you would be. Paws and Ivy.
Paws and Ivy. Ivy, ever the creative thinker, harbored an intriguing plan. Meanwhile, Bruce Wayne, attempting to evade the onslaught of eligible bachelorettes at a local festive soiree, found himself unwittingly caught under the mistletoe where a mysterious woman stole a kiss and swiftly disappeared into the night. Venturing outside, Bruce was propositioned for a ride, and despite his attempts to resist, found him irresistibly drawn into the waiting car. To his surprise, Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn were the clandestine occupants. It emerged that Ivy's unique lipstick had ensnared Bruce, compelling him to comply with their every whim. Their collective desire? A shopping spree, with Bruce footing the bill. At the local department store, the girls reveled in purchasing their heart's desires, while Bruce, ensnared by Ivy's ploy, found himself compelled to comply. However, as the night wore on, Bruce valiantly struggled against the effects of the drug. In an intense moment, Harley attempted to reapply the drugged lipstick, but Bruce, with a sudden burst of strength, recoiled and stumbled into an elevator shaft. Fortunately, Bruce's reflexes saved him as he clung to the edge, regaining his senses and transforming.
Fortunately, Bruce is Batman.
Right. Transforming into the formidable Batman. Unperturbed by the girls' escape with his credit cards, Batman pursued them relentlessly. Their attempted getaway led to a confrontation within a toy store. Inside, a surprise ambush by Harley and Ivy momentarily incapacitated Batman, but the Dark Knight utilized his grappling gun, ensnaring a tree that trapped the villains beneath it, effectively securing their capture. And that, my friends, is the Harley and the Ivy. So what is everybody's thought? We'll start with you here, Darry. well, let me just say, I like this one. This was a fun one. I thought this might be my favorite one. I know this next one we're going to get into is really good, but I had a lot of fun with this one. What do you think, Darry?
This is one of those great concepts. Again, I don't know if this is the first time that these two characters were paired up, but it's so effortless. It really is. I mean, the impetus for the action in this story is that Harley wants a Christmas tree. Harley was raised Jewish. Poison Ivy doesn't believe in Christmas trees because they hurt plants or whatever. It's perfect, and that's the excuse they use. It's referenced a bunch of times during it. Harley at one point smacks Batman in the face, screaming "Happy Hanukkah," and then at the end, she finally gets her tree.
Arguably the greatest moment in comic book history. She hits him with a big mallet saying "Happy Hanukkah."
It's great.
They should have killed him. That should have been the end of the Batman mythos, and no one would have minded.
Yeah, this whole one too. I think Dean mentioned this earlier. Tonally, these stories are all over the place, and they nail it because they stick to the tone of the villain. And in this case, it's two women who want to have fun. I don't even think Bruce would mind the fact that he had to spend all this money if he knew at the end of the night that these two weren't going to get up to shenanigans. But obviously, they talk very clearly about wanting to murder him.
Right.
But I love the.
There are no ethical billionaires.
There you go. I love the way they almost use it like a Looney Tunes cartoon. There's this great, about halfway through the story, there's this great 3-panel gag. And again, when it's animated, it makes more sense. But it's them looking down and saying, "Oh no, we accidentally killed Bruce Wayne." And then they look at each other and then they just both kind of shrug. Again, in keeping with that Looney Tunes mentality, right? These are all Warner's characters. It's just
we were going to do it anyway.
We were going to do it anyway. We were going to kill them. The very last panel, Batman's staring at the camera and smiling like he's Bugs Bunny in his little Rob Liefeld pose. It's just, it's so good. I mean, Batman doesn't even have to talk. The joke is that Bruce is lonely and no one's going to miss him and everything else. And Poison Ivy's like, you know what? I want to have a good night out and I want to get a little bit of revenge for the way I feel like me and mine have been treated. So again, just a great story. Again, it works. You can see why it's something that was so iconic to people who read this, especially female fans at the time were like, oh, great. Those are some icons. I'm going to remember those. Oh, and it works. It's such a good Poison Ivy story too, because it makes fun of, she wants to be green and she wants to help the trees and everything else, but she has absolutely no problem being incredibly decadent when it comes to buying crap she doesn't need. It's like, I will scream my message at the top of my lungs, but I still want the sweet Ruby. So again, just a great presentation of all the characters involved.
Did a little research while you was talking there. So according to this, I'll read this from Popverse. Okay. This is not the Robotech wiki. Just to let you guys
sure
know
about that? I'm not sure that I believe you.
Voice, you never know what's on my computer screen. Voiced by Arlene Sorkin, the character became a breakout character for the show and would first team up with Poison Ivy and move in with her in the 1993 episode Harley and Ivy, though she still longed for the Joker.
Oh, you mentioned episodes before and I forgot to say this. My favorite episode of Batman the Animated Series is called His Silicon Soul, and Batman fights a robot for some reason, and it was foundational for me. The fact that later on when I actually started reading Batman comics, when I found out that wasn't based on something, I was like, oh, you guys are missing out. The greatest Batman story of all time was this random episode where he fought a robot duplicate of himself. It's got Blade Runner overtones, and one of the guys who was in Blade Runner actually voices a minor character. That is my personal favorite. That is one I will go back to again and again and again and again. So.
Okay.
Was it inspirational to you? You fight robots now?
I always liked the Transformers, so I'm a big robot guy. So I'm watching this thing and I'm like, oh, he's fighting a clown. That's kind of weird. He's fighting I'm a fat little kid. I'm obsessed with Ninja Turtles and I'm trying to get into Batman. And it's like, all right, this is pretty cool. And then suddenly he's fighting a robot. I'm like, wait, robot? I like robots. And then you get to the end and it was like, why am I sad? And then that just digs itself into your psyche. And then suddenly you're watching it a little bit more like, wait, am I going to be sad again? And that's going to happen a bunch of times.
It's true. For the rest of your life.
It's all downhill from there, I guess.
I tell you, man, I a lot of Batman comics coming out now are terrible, and there's more of them now than there have ever been. It just makes me appreciate this stuff. Reading
Old man yells at cloud.
I'm old man. I yell at every cloud every day. I am not defending myself. I am every old man meme, but it is true. The fact that you can mock me for it does not change the fact that it is true.
Oh, I don't read them, so I can't. I just think it's funny. You know, I mean, I'm not going to say. I'll say this: when I flip through them, when I go to a comic store, they don't do anything to make me want to buy them. So, but I also don't want to critique them like, oh yeah, they're shit. I didn't read them.
No, I wouldn't say that because I feel like
they're shit. Okay.
I feel like, listen, I started reading comics in 1991. I'm sure a lot of people thought those were crap, but man, sure. I thought they were the greatest things in the world. So if someone is reading this stuff today and it's getting them into a store or reading it at all, it's doing its job. Is it for me? No, but I'm an old man, so what do I know?
One of my favorite parts of this story, and that is, I'm always a sucker for either pages without text. And it's interesting that you guys continually remind me this was a cartoon. I knew that's what they were shooting for, but it's really easy to translate what I'm seeing here into some type of animation in my head.
I agree.
The fun page where they're at shopping while Bruce sits there with this grimace on his face, and there's hardly any words. I think there might be one word at the bottom right, where Harley's about to touch a Christmas tree or do something with a Christmas tree, and Ivy grabs her and pulls her away and yells no. But while they're shopping and they're doing all the outfits and trying those on and looking at putting perfume on, it's great. It's really, I think that's why I dug this one, because this one felt to me the most fun story out of here. Watching these two just be like, okay, well, we're going to take him and we're going to spend some money. And it's hard to put these cartoon characters in such a dark mindset, I guess, to think that they're going to kill somebody because of how much fun I was having with the story, I guess is the best way to put it. But not off-brand for these characters in any way, right?
No. And also, Batman the Animated Series talks about people dying a lot.
A lot. Okay.
I don't know how many times you actually see somebody get murdered on screen, but it's often intimated that the Joker killed somebody, Penguin killed somebody, Riddler killed somebody, or they'll throw somebody in the ocean and walk away. There's a lot of that. Nobody cuts anybody's head off. Like the guy with the knife from the Madison Square Garden at the Carnage concert, he would just cut somebody's head off. He's too gruesome for this. You got to understand. He's a hardcore character. He was at a hardcore concert. He was seeing one of those bands you guys like Bloody Stalagmite or whatever they're called. You know, I mean, he was just all super into it, right?
I'm sure there's a black metal band called Bloody Stalagmite.
Yeah,
without a doubt. I'm sure
he's the lead singer, and his whole thing is like he sings into the knife like it's a microphone, but he like stuffed the whole concert too.
The other thing you got to remember about all the death is this show was trying to aggressively not be Batman 66. So it was like, oh, hey, are you watching this show over your kid's shoulder? Well, you might like it too. Yeah. No one ever died in the old Adam West show. And this one, we're not, to Dean's point, we're never going to show it. But the clown might occasionally talk about how he actually does have a body count. And I feel like that's pretty consistent with Paul Dini and Bruce Timm, because later on, after this became super successful, they were given Warner Animation. They did a bunch of direct-to-DVD movies. Those things get pretty freaking dark. I mean, they even did The Killing Joke. So I think they definitely have the ability to tell more mature stories, but they set it up here. But to Dean's point, you never see anything real visceral, but they definitely do. They're going for broke.
It's there. Okay.
Sometimes you get the whole somebody looks scared, and then you see somebody coming at him with the last thing you see is hands on the screen. And you kind of put it together.
Okay.
But they aired this in primetime a few times. They definitely wanted a slightly older demographic if they could attract it. It's always fun to see Harley and Ivy, obviously, and I think it's neat that this is sort of the Hanukkah story, because Hanukkah gets mentioned. It's around the time of Hanukkah, and I don't think there's anything else I can say that y'all haven't already said. I will say it has. Y'all ever see the Blues Brothers where they drive through the mall?
Yes.
This kind of feels a lot like that, or like an 80s video.
That's high praise.
Right. It's like, nah. We're just going. Or one of those 80s videos where people go shopping and there's a shopping montage and people are piling up packages and then packages are disappearing. And
this is definitely what if a Batman story were a montage. Absolutely.
Right. Which honestly is really great. And it might be the best story in here. It's just one of those things where it's very funny. So it's, why can't a comedy win the Academy Award for Best Picture? Is it better than the story we're going to talk about next? I think that's the question you have to ask yourself. Is they're probably just about as good. They're just so different. Who is more important? Who's a better band? The Beatles or Dr. Dre? I don't know. Hard to say. They're a lot different. You can't really compare it like that.
It is a good Hanukkah story, though. It's there's not too many Hanukkah specials out there, but there's always appears to be one in the general holiday specials. We saw one last week with Kitty, but this is a good one because it's just straight up Harley being like, I want to celebrate Christmas. It seems like fun. And Poison Ivy's like, no, we don't do that in this household. And then they have shenanigans, but it still works its way in. And Dean's right. That's probably why it's set in the middle of the month or the first third of the month. So it's just, it's freaking great.
Also, Poison Ivy would be glad to know that a regional grocery store chain here, Stu Leonard's, they sell living Christmas trees. But for every Christmas tree they cut down, they plant two. I don't know how that fucking works. Mathematically, how do you do that? How is there room for that? Hey, plant 2 trees where we just cut down that one. How does that work? I don't know. But that's what he says, and they wouldn't put it on TV, especially not in a commercial, if it wasn't 100% true.
That's right.
That's actually hilarious. Every time in my life I have bought a real Christmas tree, it has been from Stu Leonard's. I actually cannot believe you just said that. That's hilarious to me.
All right, let's get into our next story, White Christmas. So this was written by Paul Dini, art and color by Glenn Murakami, lettered by Richard Starkings and Comic Craft.
They do it all.
Yes,
I
they
swear
do.
They letter every comic from 1994 on, except for the ones that Todd Klein does.
Right, dude.
Todd Klein.
All right. On the eve of Christmas.
And Tom Warzikowski.
Oh, right. Of course.
On the eve of Christmas, Gotham City was enshrouded in a shroud of mystery as Batman embarked on a relentless investigation into a prison breakout masterminded by Victor Fries. Now, granted, I think he was the only one that escaped. Victor Fries, you may all know, is known to the world as the menacing
brilliantly portrayed by Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
It's true.
Mr. Freeze. The prison doctor shed light on Victor's recent withdrawal, citing his despondence upon learning that snowfall was not anticipated until the following year. Stepping outside, Batman was met with a surprise. Heavy snowfall had unexpectedly commenced blanketing the city. It's getting deeper, folks. As Batman pursued...
That's what snow does.
It does. As Batman pursues Mr. Freeze, the abrupt snowstorm wrought chaos upon Gotham streets, leading to a near-fatal accident narrowly averted by the Caped Crusader as he rescued a mother and her daughter from an out-of-control vehicle. Racing toward Gotham Cemetery, Batman encountered a police car encased in a block of ice. Seems suspect. Swiftly melting the ice, he liberated the trapped officer who revealed Mr. Freeze's location within the cemetery. Confronting Mr. Freeze amidst the snowy tombstones, Batman witnessed the villain unloading a formidable weapon responsible for the ongoing snowfall. Attempting to apprehend Freeze, Batman found himself overpowered for a quick second, slammed against his parents' headstone. Undeterred, the Dark Knight rose to his feet, swiftly employing his batarangs to disable Freeze's weapon. Offering a chance for a peaceful surrender in the spirit of Christmas, Batman inquired about Freeze's motives for his actions on such a night. In a poignant moment, Freeze gestured towards his wife Nora's headstone, explaining that their marriage had begun on a snowy Christmas Eve. And he confessed his desire to ensure that Nora's anniversary wasn't devoid of the snow that she cherished. Touched by the grief-stricken villain's sentiment, they both leave peacefully with the concluded wintry confrontation behind them. So clearly, Victor Fries is going back to jail, but there you go. That is White Christmas. I'll go ahead and start here real quick. And as for as much fun as we had in that previous story with Harley and Ivy, this one is very, very solemn, very touching. And Dean, you said it earlier, this touches on loss this is definitely something that a lot of people feel around the holidays. You know,
Christmas is tough for a lot of folks. I don't think a lot of people know this. The number one day for suicide attempts in America is Christmas Eve.
Right.
It's a rough time. It's a rough time. I mean, it's kind of like the old physics, right? But it's the social emotional thing. There can't be an action without an equally opposite reaction. And for people, it's the most wonderful time of the year. For some people, it's the worst time of the year. You lost somebody or what. I don't mean to cut you off, Jesse, but it's a rough time. If you lost somebody, or you're alone, or you're far from home, and you're not feeling it, it can be really, really tough. And obviously, if you're feeling that low, we obviously encourage you to reach out, talk to a friend, talk to a family member. I think the number for you to text is 988. But if you're feeling that way in the holidays, you can send a text and talk to some kind of counselor and get some help, because that's the most important thing. Even people who aren't feeling that low, it can be really rough. I remember the first Christmas without my dad was hardcore, really bad. And then first Christmas when you're not going to make it home. And then there's also people, me growing up, as I've told everybody, I'm in an abused household. So there were some Christmases we spent together that maybe I wish we could have been apart. It's also a rough time in that way for a lot of people.
I would say that as far as origins go, I've always remembered Victor Freeze's origin because of the love that he lost. And the good thing about this story is they actually cover that, because they want you to understand that the connection that he had with his wife and how much he wants to give her something, even though she's passed. Not only is this something he says it's for his wife, but you can guarantee it's for him.
Oh,
you know,
absolutely.
it's absolutely to try. He's going about it the wrong way. Granted, he's just
it's the only way
snow.
you can do it. It's not like he can be like, so listen, guys, I know I froze all of Metropolis and half of Gotham,
right,
but I really just want my snow stuff to make it snow because I miss my wife, okay, and she's dead. They'd be like, Victor, that's very touching, but also no. We don't, when people commit gun crimes, we don't usually give them guns. We're kind of going to chalk this up under that.
Batman, clearly he's going after an escaped criminal. That's the plan here. But what is the escaped criminal doing that's really so bad? He's making it fucking snow on Christmas Eve. That's a lot of people's wish. He's making a lot of wishes come true.
Yeah, except for the mother and daughter that almost got killed.
You're not wrong on some level. As someone who has lived in big metropolitan areas and who doesn't necessarily live in a small one now, and I'm sure Darry would agree, we can't handle surprise snow.
No,
we can't handle it. We just can't. I mean, it's not that things will be bad. If it snows more than we thought, or it snows earlier than we thought, we have to get ready for this kind of thing. We need the trucks out. We need things happening so that things can continue. And so that's why it's bad. But you're also right. A lot of people want it to snow on Christmas Eve, and that's not a bad thing. Maybe he should have made it snow less. That's really the problem, right?
That's what I was going to say.
It's like he made a blizzard. Bro, we can handle probably an inch and a half of snow we weren't expecting, but it gets beyond that, and we can't handle it.
There are plenty of holiday stories that end with someone magically making it snow. That's fine. I think the problem here is, all right, fine, he's Mr. Freeze, but we do have to remember he's a sociopath. He's making it snow, and you might like that for a little while, even if it's not a foot and a half no one was expecting on Gotham, which is the equivalent of New York without the grid. But he's also out of his mind. So he's not thinking, he says at the end, wouldn't it just be nice that it snowed? He has lost the ability to reason that way. And you see that. Most of this story isn't Batman hitting Mr. Freeze. Most of this story is dealing with all the people who weren't expecting it to drop to sub-zero in the entire metropolitan area to freeze icy. It's you can't trust this type of broken person with that much power. And you see that he's right. Before in your synopsis, you said, he quickly or he swiftly gets the cop out of the car, but he uses a flamethrower that apparently he just carries around in his utility belt.
And that only works for 3 seconds. That seems like
I like that though. I like that though, because like in the thing, right? In the thing, when he's got a
as far as vermicelitude, you're like,
exactly.
Sorry, you're like, okay, so he's a flamethrower for 3 seconds. That's great, but I'm also gonna rag on it a little bit. I'm like, is it worth it for 3 seconds? Hey, I guess it was worth it to that cop.
But when he realizes that's not going to be enough, what does he do? He takes out a batarang and he just starts chipping away at it because he knows.
Comes back to the batarangs.
I just like that scene because
I love it. I love it. I was just making a joke about batarangs. There's a million things in that utility belt, but if you're watching the Terminator movie, robots have to fight at some point. If you're if you're reading a Punisher comic, somebody's got to get blown away. If you're watching a Bret Hart wrestling match, and I go back to that because I know you love Bret Hart and Darry, you got to slap the sharpshooter on somebody. That's why we're here. So I don't have a problem with it. It's just funny. It's just if you play Tekken, you play as Law, you'll always go back to the flip kick. If you're ever in trouble, you'll do that flip kick.
That's true.
Or if you're Mortal Kombat, throw the hat.
It's great because you see Batman, who doesn't have any superpowers, whip out a batarang, whip out this tiny piece of metal, and just start chipping away because he's fought this guy enough times to know someone is alive in there. That's what separates Batman from most of your other non-power characters. He knows there's a guy in there. He knows every second counts, and he saves the cop. And the cop is like, he's definitely in there. Go deal with him. This is great because he knows Mr. Freeze is going to cause havoc because he thinks there's no one else that's worth saving. The one person he loved him is gone, right? So he's gonna not consider anyone else worthwhile, and that's what Batman does. He cleans up these crazy, insane messes. And it's funny too because my understanding, and I could be missing something, is that this version of Mr. Freeze really didn't exist before BTAS. There was a Dr. Zero, there was a Mr. Freeze on Batman 66, but they didn't have this really incredible origin, which immediately became iconic, and it's just what we know. And Dean mentioned Schwarzenegger, but they adapted 100%. I think it won an Emmy. It got a movie sequel later on in Sub-Zero, but that was one of BTAS's biggest accomplishments, sitting down and saying many of these characters anyway, have been around since before World War II. We want to humanize them and we want to give them a reason. I mean, one of my favorites of a show that has almost nothing but favorites is the original Two-Face origin, where you are going to understand why this guy turns into such a bad supervillain after he gets something thrown into his face. So they took their time with it and they let it breathe, and they always gave you something entertaining. Because again, I loved all this stuff when I was 8 and certainly didn't understand nuance at that time. So White Christmas is definitely my favorite story in this book.
Post-crisis, Mr. Freeze has Nora has a fatal disease and he's trying to cure her. But pre-crisis, he's just a guy who was messing with cold stuff, who honestly was not as cool as Captain Cold. Let's be honest. No pun intended there either. But Captain Cold at the time is like, oh, so you're a cold guy who has a gun? He's like, yeah. I'm like, well, I've got a parka. I'm like, all right, well, I guess you win. But Mr. Freeze would later get super cool with the freaking helmet and shit. And this version of Mr. Freeze is badass. And they certainly push this as far to a higher level that he always comes across. And they actually, I think if you go back and look, they don't use him a ton, which keeps him very sympathetic.
Well, Dean, did you have any notes on this story?
All right. It's great. It's argued this one's either the best or the Harley and Ivy story is the best. I got to start with the guy who almost hits the mom and the kid. The Batman saves him and then goes over to the guy who's kicking his car and be like, piece of junk. And then Batman gets in his face and he's like, get chased. Bro, it wasn't supposed to snow. It wasn't supposed to snow. He wasn't doing anything. He was doing his best. He is the victim of Mr. Freeze just like them. And I think I talked to Darry and you were like, I think Batman's just upset. I agree he's upset, but this is wrong. This is the only wrong thing Batman does in the entire comic book. Should have left this guy alone.
He's kicking the car. If he had gone over and been like, I'm so sorry. I wasn't expecting that. I was probably driving too fast. I didn't see you. If he had gone over to the kid and the mother and be like, I am so sorry. I thank God Batman was here. But he's not. They make a point of drawing him, and they draw him in the most unflattering manner. He's got a comb over. His tie's loose. He's got this rumpled suit. And he's
ugly, so he must be a bad person.
I'm not saying he's a bad person. I'm saying
you kind of are.
The rules of this story definitely in the Looney Tunes way of looking at it, I'm probably not supposed to empathize with this guy. And they draw him kicking the car, and Batman comes over. He doesn't punch him. He doesn't hit him. He doesn't wreck the car.
Well, that's good. Okay, that's good that this hyper ninja did not fucking punch Curtis Combe over as hard as he could. Terrific. Way to go, Batman. That's the lowest threshold. Congrats.
If this had been a Punisher story, the Punisher would have paralyzed this man.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, without a doubt. The Punisher would have been like, that kid almost died.
The Punisher might not have done anything. The Punisher's a smart guy. He might have been like, yeah, he wasn't expecting it to snow.
Well, it's true. Shit. He is from Brooklyn.
He just had a traumatic experience, and he may not even he may go thank them in a second, and he's just in his own world right now. Batman should understand, if I recall, something traumatic happened to him once.
That's what I was going to say before, too, is we always forget this. Batman is easily as messed up as most of his villains when you look at his origin story. And I think this one, with it being a little girl who looks about the age that Bruce was when he lost his parents, I feel like that's a trigger, right? We know
she asked if he's an angel.
Yeah, which ties back to that first page. Yeah, so I think when kids are involved, there's an alarm bell going off in Bruce's head that maybe only he can hear. So.
Listen, I'll accept all that. I understand why Batman did it. I'm just saying he's wrong. Because I have PTSD and I have done things due to my trauma that were wrong. You have to take ownership. And I want you to talk about this in group, Bruce.
I just want to point something out here. As you guys were talking, I was reading over the panels again, looking over those and just checking them out. As the car is careening, it's clearly out of control, right? You can see that it's out of control and something bad's going to happen as this car can't control itself.
Okay.
Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration says, and this is what exactly should have come out of Batman's mouth. When he got up in that guy's face, he should have said, you should reduce your speed by 1/3 on wet roads and by half more on a snow-packed road. And that's what he should have said, and we would have never had this conversation.
You can't disagree with that.
You can't argue with it.
He could have put chains on us. That's not possible. That's not possible. You also can't drive with him if there's not snow.
No, that's true. It would suck.
Like, what's he supposed to do? Just keep him in the fucking trunk, and in case it starts snowing, just pull over and do it. It's Gotham City. If you pull over, you'll never get back in traffic. You never will. That'll be
if you pull over and the car's still running, I'm pretty sure they give you a ticket.
It's also possible that Tweedledee and Tweedledum would just kill you. So what are they doing here? Who the fuck knows?
That guy's
got some villains, y'all.
That's true.
All right, Dean, you got any other notes on this story?
No, I mean, I think the other thing is the art is appropriate. Is as funny as this sounds, I felt cold when I read this.
Oh, yeah.
It literally made me feel chilly. So really, again, we're just saying this again and again. And I think that's why we keep getting off on tangents, is that this is it's a fantastic Christmas story. It's the Christmas story that you read. You read and maybe you put on Fairy Tale of New York or Same Old Lang Syne or 2,000 Miles, the sad Christmas song. And you kind of enjoy them to go along with this. You kind of just remind yourself that if you're with some people, other people might not be. And if you aren't, sometimes it feels good to lean into the sadness.
There's a very big moment that happens in the fight where Batman Bruce essentially gets tossed into his family's headstone. And he looks up and he sees it's towering over him and it says Wayne across it. I think that is kind of to help you understand that at this point, Bruce is kind of identifying with what Victor is going through. He sees that and it immediately, there's no words, not a single word. The only thing that you see is him, the wreath gets knocked off. Batman picks it back up to set it back on the headstone and then takes off walking towards Mr. Freeze. Not a single word is said, but what a powerful moment.
Well, theoretically, by that time, the world's greatest detective had enough clues to piece together why Mr. Freeze was doing this.
He is definitely understanding what Mr. Freeze is going through.
The page you mentioned about him arriving at the Wayne tomb, it's completely wordless. It's 6 panels. and it just tells you so much about the character, and particularly in this story where he keeps losing because he's on the back foot by the time Victor is doing what he wants to do. It's great. I really love it. One tiny thing that I noticed, and I don't know if I'm just reading too much into it, but on the next page where Batman stops Mr. Freeze's giant, incredibly phallic gun, he throws tiny little batarangs at him that are shaped like
always comes back to batarangs.
But they're I guess they're bat throwing stars, because they're not going to return back to him. These reminded me of the accessory of a random Batman figure I had, and I highly doubt there was any intention, but all I could think of was, oh man, if I had read this at the time, or this had been in the episode as it adapted it, I would have been like, oh, that's why he has those on that figure in case he's got to stop Mr. Freeze. So
I want to say on that line of thinking, kudos to them with the Suicide Squad movie that came out in 2015 or something, because when Batman was in it and they did a bunch of figures of him and he was always underwater Batman, and he does indeed go underwater in that and has the mask on. So I really appreciate it.
That's true. And,
it doesn't take much to impress us.
No, it really doesn't. The other thing I'll just say is Mr. Freeze is a great villain because he wants this one thing, and it's so wonderfully consistent because it drives everything he does, and everything he does is insane. It's just completely, you can always stop him by saving his wife or by figuring out to save his wife. In this story, she's already passed on, which I think Dean mentioned is not usually in canon. Usually she's still frozen somewhere and they can't cure the disease. But I just love the crazy lengths this man will go to just because one person loved him, and that was enough. And that was enough for this brilliant scientist, engineer guy to go to these lengths. He just does not care about anything else, and I think that's a really good examination. Jesse, when you mention the two headstones, I think it's a great way of paralleling the characters. What does Mr. Freeze represent? All Batman's rogues represent some aspect of the hero who's tasked with pursuing them. And to me, Freeze is that determination, right? Like, Batman is going to get you. If Batman decides you've done something wrong, he's going to get you. He's going to bring you to justice, no matter what, even if it's to his detriment, because that's what he's decided he has to do to work through his own trauma. Mr. Freeze, in a lot of ways, is the same way, but it's a warped view of that, right? It is Christmas or Christmas Eve, whatever this is. It's my anniversary. I can't be with her. It's all I want to be with her. I'm not going to take my own life, but I what can I do? I can make it snow. It's going to snow. I don't care how many people have to get hurt in the process. It's going to snow, and I'm going to be with her. It's that same level of determination, and only Batman gets it, and only he can stop him. So, again, it's only a couple of pages long, but it tells you everything you need to know about two very iconic characters.
For sure.
You say that this one lady loved him and that's all he needed. That was enough. I mean, well, to be fair, he was a dork-ass guy who was not very well liked, who didn't really do anything. And this smoke show was really into him. It probably is all it took. He didn't really have a lot of things to compare that to. And if only one or two people have ever loved you, you got to be worried if anybody else ever will.
Oh, I'm not faulting.
I am. He needs to get over it. Cry me a river, build a bridge, and get over it, right? Like,
I think the other problem, too, is his origin is fundamentally built around what one of you said before, probably, Dean. There's no good billionaires. And that's what Mr. Freeze's origin is.
Me.
I was almost
probably Dean.
There are no ethical billionaires.
What is Mr. Freeze's origin? It's like, I'm going to cure her. I need a little bit more time. Like, I'm going to do it. It's just, I'm creating an entire new field of science for you. Cryonics is not a thing that really exists, but in DCU it exists because Victor Freeze wanted to save his wife. It's like, I just need to figure out a cure for this. And someone was like, you're costing us a lot on overhead, and this is going to take a couple of years to get to market, and you're a dweeb. I'm pretty sure we can
Quarterly's down.
Yeah, we're down this quarter. I'm going to fire you and get rid of whatever the heck this thing is. And you're
we can
weird.
Move these numbers from this side to the other.
Yeah. So I kind of love that because it's such a perfect origin from like the 80s, 90s when this thing came out. And I'm not saying it wouldn't happen today. I'm not saying it wouldn't be just as relevant, but that's what causes one of these top shelf supervillains is someone decides it wasn't a human life was not worth the money. And this guy says, no, you don't understand how important that is to me. You don't understand how little the rest of you mean to me in comparison to what I had and what you've taken from me. So again, it's a perfect example of relationship and what it means to you. For Batman, it was his parents, and for Victor, it was his wife. It was this one person who said, "Nope, I completely get you. I understand what you're about. I respect your passion. I want to be with you." And to have that all taken away, it's very similar to a Punisher story. It's the lengths we go to because of loss.
Well said. All right, let's get into what villain hasn't showed up yet. That's right. Yeah.
The Riddler.
Yeah. The Riddler has not shown up. And he will not show up.
Was Black Mask in BTAS? I don't remember him.
I don't remember at all.
Black
Spider.
Oh.
I should have never asked.
Mr. Zaz?
Mr. Zaz, get ready. We are capping this off with Mr. Zaz.
I hate kids over here for this Mr. Zaz holiday special where he's like, he would cut a Santa Claus up, right, and put on his skin, and then go have kids sit on his lap. And he's like, watch this, and like killing some kid's mom in front of him.
How is Mr. Zaz a Batman villain? I never, even when it was during the 90s that I heard about this character, I'm like, how is this a super villain? You're just a weird dude.
You're just a weird dude.
You're just you're killing people. Oh, okay, that's not really that unusual. Oh, but you carve it into your arm. Stop it with this.
What are you doing New Year's Eve? Story by Paul Dini and Bruce Timm. Written by Paul Dini, art by Kevin Altieri and Butch Lukic. I'll go with Lukic. Colored by Glenn Murakami, lettered by Richard Starkings and Comic Craft. Here
is the villain Crazy Quilt.
Crazy Quilt.
Tin-eyed man.
Get ready. You're going to be surprised, Dean. All right.
I'm naming some of the heavy hitters here. Film Freak.
On the evening of December 31st, Commissioner Gordon relayed to Batman a chilling broadcasted threat issued by the infamous Joker.
Oh, shit.
Yeah,
sorry.
You didn't see that one coming, did you? I'm sorry.
Little underground.
A little too Z-list for you,
I could have seen Ra's al Ghul. I could have seen King Tut from Batman 66.
Okay.
Maybe even Egghead as the
Egghead. I knew we had to get there. Right. The deranged clown.
Professor Hugo Strange.
Oh,
jeez. The deranged clown vowed to refrain from taking lives in the upcoming year, but planned to escalate his atrocities before the stroke of midnight. In a race against time, Batman and Gordon were summoned.
Binge before you go on the big diet, right?
That's right. That's true. Exactly right. Batman and Gordon were summoned to investigate the demise of a Dr. John Erickson, a researcher at GothCorp Labs, developing a government project centered on a lethal sonic bomb. Their investigation uncovered Erickson's work on a sonic device capable of causing fatal harm to anyone within its auditory range, unless shielded by some specialized ear protection. Call them earmuffs. That's what I'm going to call them.
Headphones.
Headphones. Batman swiftly deduced the Joker's sinister scheme, a plan to detonate this lethal bomb amidst the New Year's countdown in the bustling Gotham Square. As anticipated chaos loomed when the Joker commenced setting up the bomb. Set us up the bomb. Oh boy, I just made it. Set
us up the bomb, but you don't know BTAS. We see what your priorities are, Jesse. We see what your priorities are.
I'm just so glad you guys got that. That's all that matters.
All your base are belong to us.
There it is.
All belong to us.
There, okay, all right. As anticipated, chaos loomed when the Joker commenced setting up the bomb, distributing masks bearing his visage to the gathered crowd. Among the sea of Jokers, Batman struggled to discern the real culprit, utilizing his batnoculars. Sure.
Binoculars, yeah.
All right. He spotted some of
it. Be?
he spotted
it's on sale at KB toy stores.
He spotted some of Joker's henchmen donning the protective earwear from the lab, pinpointing his target. Launching into action, Batman subdued the thugs, but faced a surprise attack from the genuine Joker. With seconds ticking away, the countdown reached its climax. In a daring move, Batman seized a champagne bottle from the Joker's grasp, dousing the sophisticated sonic device and causing it to short circuit. In the ensuing scuffle, the Joker fired his pistol, grazing Batman's shoulder. However, a stroke of fate intervened as the massive bell situated in Gotham Square plummeted, landing squarely on the Joker, incapacitating him amid the jubilant cries of the crowd, heralding the arrival of the new year. So there it is, ladies and gentlemen. What are you doing on New Year's Eve? So Darry, let's start with you. This is the crown jewel of Batman villains.
This one is great. No surprise there. I love the gimmick of the Joker hands out masks so that everyone, I don't know if anyone's actually been to Times Square on New Year's Eve. I have not, but I've had many friends who did it, and it's insane. So the idea that everyone would be drunk out of whatever they could smuggle down there and would be wearing Joker masks, and that delays Batman for 90 seconds long enough that almost everyone dies, I think is a great plot point. I love that even though the Joker has gone to great lengths to hide himself in the crowd, he is still playing a piano and drinking champagne way above the crowd. It's like he's done nothing to mask himself. And again, I feel like that's very perfect consistent. Joker. Right. Yeah, that was great. I love the theatricality too. The Joker is never happy, and he just doesn't want to kill people randomly. He wants to make a big spectacle out of it. Right. And I think that's the perfect way to sell it. Joker would love New Year's Eve, right? Everyone's making poor decisions tonight. Everyone's saying, no, tomorrow is a chance to begin over. That's Joker's whole thing. Nothing matters, right? And on this day of all days, you all believe, at least for a fraction of a second, that nothing matters. So this New Year's Eve is Joker's day. And I love the ending. Again, it goes back to that Looney Tunes thing. Joker is trying to shoot Batman with a gun. They very clearly draw a gun. This is not one of those things where someone's got a laser pistol and they're always shooting.
He doesn't mind going back to basics when his souped up shit doesn't work. If he's trying to hit you with, I don't know, Joker themed hockey stick and you break it, he just pulls out a regular knife and stabs you. He's not that picky. He's like, listen, I'll do this with panache or I'll do it pitifully, but I'm gonna do it.
Agreed. And then because it's consistent with all the other stories, he gets knocked out by a bell falling on him, and everyone just kind of looks at him like, well, whatever. And then still the crowd at the end, who could not care less about what's going on, still screams Happy New Year. It's great.
I love how it's backwards. It's the bell rising instead of the ball dropping. It's definitely got to be a bell rising. Do you have any idea, and I might have missed it, but I've tried to look this over a couple times, what the hell makes the bell fall? Is there any explanation as to why that occurs? Or is it just dumb luck that the bell, when I say the bell falls, I mean, it comes down and lands on the Joker. It looks like there's an explosion at the top. I don't know if maybe it's tied to the sonic device? I thought
that when the bell went up, that was going to set off the device.
Yeah.
But the device has been short-circuited with the champagne, so maybe that set something off. At first I thought a bullet ricocheted, but the only thing he hits is Batman, so that wouldn't make any sense. So, but they make a point in the second panel of page, I don't know, 50 or whatever I'm looking at, to show that the machine is still sputtering and still connected to all the wires. So maybe it fed back into that and it blew up.
That makes sense.
I mean, it makes sense as much as a clown trying to murder a bunch of people. So.
Right. All right.
What else are you gonna do if you're the clown prince of crime, though? You gotta live up to that.
Oh, you gotta go over the top.
I love the fact that he breaks into a high-tech government-funded lab on the day of, because it's what are Batman and the Joker if not a couple at this point, right? It's a little foreplay. It's like, no, I'm going to wait for the day of. I'm going to make sure he absolutely knows it was me that robbed this lab and took this secret weapon, and then we're going to be at midnight. I mean, what is the bell falling on the Joker other than basically a stand-in for the two of them kissing? I mean, they are each other's best relationship, or strongest relationship.
Well,
it's true. I've always felt this.
This is a theory of people's. This
isn't me. This
laying it all out here.
Asylum. Yeah, listen, the Joker and the Batman, man. You spend that much time in each other's zone. You're really passionate about it. What does he say in The Dark Knight? He says, we're going to do this forever. That sounds like wedding vows. That's all I'm saying.
And that,
you know,
and that's the wedding nuptial ringing there. That's the bell coming down. It's
both notoriously unable to commit to the women who are constantly throwing themselves at you. I don't know about you, but if Selena Kyle is throwing themselves at you, I'm not dressing up in a costume and risking getting shot every night. And same thing with him.
But that's why she's into you. You would have to keep doing it.
I'm a bad example. I'm just saying that the two of them are always, I can't settle down with the gorgeous women who are up in my shtick and throwing themselves at me, but I am going to go out in the middle of the night and beat up this guy dressed as a bat or guy dressed as a clown. I'm just saying there's something else there. I'm no psychologist, but it should be obvious by this point. Yeah. But this was another one that was adapted for the show, and I love it. I think it was anyway. I'm a bit fuzzy, but I had so much fun reading this. I mean, again, the modern Batman comics that I've read, they're not really my thing, but this, man, I can hear Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill, and I just love it so much.
All right, Dean, what do you got there, man?
All right. Well, first off, when the bell fell and hit the Joker, all I could think about was the theme song from Saved by the Bell. Zach Morris, Screech, Lisa Turtle, AC Slater, Kelly Kapowski. They all could have been in that crowd. They weren't, but they could have been. It could have been a Bayside trip. That was in my head. As soon as for whatever reason, it just popped into my head. I mean, it's a great story. It's a really fun Joker story. Batman gets shot, and that's pretty cool in a way. It kind of shows that reminds you that he's human, or what passes for human in the DC universe, and shows that you're not that. They're playing for more keeps than it seems. Much like every one of these stories, it feels more like a cartoon in a good way. Later, it will be and everything. It's wild how, like Darry said, you just feel like you're watching the cartoon in a fantastic way. Great Joker story, great, really fun Batman story. Has all the trappings of New Year's Eve. There's college football. There's people drunk and taking any free thing that gets handed to them, which I want to reiterate. Do not go to Times Square on New Year's Eve. It like I said earlier in Impress Darry, juice ain't worth the squeeze. It's just not worth it. It will not be worth it to you. I've never spoken to any. I know half a dozen people who have done it, and none of them have been like, oh, I'm fucking glad I did that. Not a one of them.
All right, well, let's get into our last story. This is called Should Old Acquaintance Be Forgot? Written by Paul Dini, art by Dan Riba, colored by Bruce Timm, and lettered by, can you guess, Richard Starkings and Comic Craft.
RSC.
That's right. Should old acquaintance be forgot? In the serene aftermath of the boisterous New Year's Eve revelry, Commissioner Gordon made his way to a quaint local diner. Recognizing the commissioner's arrival, Joe, the diner's owner, swiftly ushered out the remaining patrons, setting the stage for an intimate tete-a-tete. Moments later, the enigmatic figure of Batman quietly enters, joining Commissioner Gordon at a table for a quiet cup of coffee. Seated across from each other amidst the calm ambience of the diner, the duo shared a reflective moment, reminiscing on their shared victories in the ongoing battle against crime. Acknowledging the trials and triumphs of the past year and that they had seen them endure unscathed. As the conversation flowed and the aroma of coffee lingered in the air, they toasted to their successes and camaraderie in safeguarding Gotham City. As the last drops of coffee dwindled in their cups, Commissioner Gordon, with a casual turn, beckoned Joe for a cheesesteak to go. However, in a typical display of his stealth and generosity, Batman had quietly slipped away, leaving behind a silent token of appreciation, a settled bill for their brief rendezvous.
His stealth and generosity, two traits that we often put together when we talk about somebody. Like, oh, how's your friend Dan? Oh, he's stealthy and generous.
Quite generous.
But you wouldn't want that, right? You wouldn't want someone who was being generous to make it about them, right? True generosity should be anonymous, I would think.
This thing was what? 4 pages, maybe? I can't remember. I was looking at it. It's
not
very quick.
Long.
It's very quick. It's a way to end the thing. It's not terribly impactful. However, I mean, it shows kind of what the holidays is all about: getting together with a friend, spending some time with them, and hanging out. And
you're in the middle of a conversation.
Well, he could have stuck around and maybe walked outside, walk Commissioner Gordon to his car. But that's kind of what I take from this. These two guys have been through thick and freaking thin right now. They are just trying to fight the good fight, and they get the few moments to begin the new year by sitting down, and this is apparently a tradition, to ring in, hopefully, some more success in fighting crime. So, Dean Compton, what do you got to say?
Any success, right? Look at Gotham City.
Anything would be good.
To be honest.
Anything would be good.
It's just obviously this one's about the meme. We're like, here's to survive. We survived another New Year's Eve. Here's to surviving another year. And see, hopefully we're doing the same time next year. Hopefully. And that's sometimes the best anybody can hope for when they're talking, especially when they get shot by the Joker. And I also like Batman's realness, where Commissioner Gordon's like, that was a close call. He's like, they're all close calls.
Right.
And Batman couldn't be as good as he is without realizing that there are no, it may seem easy, or there may be some that are easier than others, but any of them could go wrong and he could end up dead or Bane-ified,
right,
at like any moment. So it's like, it kind of summed it up. It's about getting together with some friends and reminding each other that you love each other and hoping you're going to do it again next year.
This man orders a cheesesteak at 2:00 in the morning.
Hell yeah!
Wow.
Bro, when we lived in Philly, I used to walk over to the Wawa and get a meatball sub at 2 a.m.
When do you go to sleep after that? It better be at about 5 hours afterwards.
I was gonna say that's a brave move by
yes, dude.
I'm gonna explain it to you the way Juggernaut explained it when he wins a match on Marvel Superheroes, the first fighting games. He's like, I tried to tell you losers, I'm unstoppable. I'm unstoppable. I'll eat that goddamn thing if I won't. Won't a goddamn thing happen to me?
I mean, I will say it's a good meme. Like, Dean's not wrong. I say this every year, but it's a good meme. I post it every year. There's a lot of crappy comics out there, but the idea that every New Year's Eve, Batman and Commissioner Gordon have a cup of coffee and just say, well, you know what? We're still here. That's a good meme. A lot of crappy memes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's a reason it resonates so strong. Everybody has a rough year every now and then, and there's rough parts of the year for everybody. And you feel like a survivor. And then and those guys are like trauma survivors like me. So every year it feels like you won again. Let's hope we're doing it again next time.
And it's this idea too, before I mentioned that Batman and Mr. Freeze, they both have this drive, they both have this determination. And Mr. Freeze is very much about the people who loved him. You know, Batman respects the hell out of Commissioner. And it's not a new relationship. I mean, Gordon's been there since the very beginning of the franchise. And the fact that it develops in this very natural way of mutual respect of what again, I go back to the Dark Knight. It's like, no, you represent order. You represent the establishment. You represent the way things should work. And I love that. I think it's echoed here where, like, Jim is old, his tie is loose, he had a long day, he might not even be off shift yet, but he is going to keep going, and he knows that Batman is on his side, and together they're going to do the best that they can do no matter what. So when they're sitting here and they look at each other, Batman's got every superhero in the world on speed dial, but he looks at Jim as an equal. No questions asked. So I think it's great. I think it's one of those stories that really nails the character, again, in a minimalist way. There's not giant captions explaining all of this. There's just a barkeep, a diner owner, a couple of scenes, and the clinking of glasses. It's well done, man. It really is.
Cheesesteak.
Let me say one more thing. In the story with Poison Ivy, we see Veronica Breland, who was a supporting character in Batman the Animated Series. I meant to say that earlier. That's a cool little callback. If you don't know, you don't know. When you see the lady he's like, Veronica, I was going to spend it alone. That's somebody, she's like a debutante who chases Bruce Wayne. Who's known Bruce Wayne since he was young. She's a character from the animated series. And that's a cool little Easter egg. Like, if you watch it doesn't impact things a whole lot, but what a cool thing to sneak in if you're a fan of the animated series.
Speaking of that, I mean, clearly this is a book that you would obviously suggest for any BTAS. Is that how you guys say it?
BTAS, yeah.
BTAS fans,
I say
correct?
Batman the Animated Series because I'm stupid when I say BTAS. But people say BTAS.
All right.
That's fine. Hey, I'm not saying anybody shouldn't say it. I just personally feels dumb. Every time I say BTAS, I just see the wrestler Taz in my head. Like, BTAS. I don't need weapons. My hands are my weapons.
You get choked out.
Right, Taz Mission.
Taz Mission. That's right.
Taz versus Batman. Let's do the crossover.
BTAS versus Taz. That's perfect. But this is something that you guys clearly would suggest for any reader, and somebody that watches BTAS, they should pick this up, right, Dean?
Yeah, but even if you don't pick it up, and if you were, listen, a lot of times from my friends, a lot of my friends now have kids, and they're like, I wish I could, what comics should I give my kids? It's hard. This is a comic book you can give to your kid, and you can give to your kid right now. There's nothing in here that will bother them a whole lot from, let's say, age, I don't know, 8, 9 up. Like, there's no problems here. And I think even precocious kids won't have a problem with most of what's going on here, a little younger. But I mean, if you like the series, pick it up. If you don't like the series, pick it up. If you've ever wondered why people like Batman or like Batman the Animated Series, pick it up. And if you're at your local comic book store, pick it up, because you need to buy everything you can from them right now. It hasn't been the best year.
True.
Right. Darry, what's your final thoughts here, man?
We read a lot of stuff, and we talk about a lot of stuff, and we even like a lot of stuff. This is a great comic. This is a good comic. So well made. If someone really sits down and they say, listen, I need you to defend the industry, I need you to defend this stupid hobby, you give them this. This is good. This is through and through. I mean, this is people coming over from animation, but they nail it. And you can see it in the way the art, the dialogue, the narration, the put together, the theme spread across 5 different stories, and they use the medium in a way that serves as a good example to everyone else. And I enjoyed every page of this.
I mean, how many comics out there did Bruce Timm do? Was he doing a lot of the...
He did Mad Love, and I think, didn't he do Avengers half or 1.5, which was like Doctor Doom? That's a great comic book too. I don't know all the comic books he did, but I know that every one that I've read that he did, I really fucking liked. So
the main thing I'm driving at there is, hey, go watch the show, but where else can you enjoy it actually in your hands? Right here. This is a great physical way of actually holding something that these animators have created on the page, and that's.
And also, if you want to go buy the Batman Adventures comic itself, that I think Burchett and Mike Parabeck did, it's great as well. Even if they didn't work on the show, it fits very nicely into the vein of the show, and it's really great for readers 8 or 9 and up. I mean, it really gets it across in a way. This is obviously does it to another level, but it does just about as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that said, happy holidays, everybody. It is time to get into plugs. We appreciate you being here and listening to us talk about comics, specifically 90s comics. So what else are we doing? Dean Compton, we do some things over there on the Unspoken Decade, right?
Sometimes. All right, y'all. I actually posted on Blue Sky today, so look for us on Blue Sky. That happened. But before I even get into that stuff, once again, just happy holiday season, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, joyous Kwanzaa, Happy Yule, Happy Saturnalia, Happy New Year. Whatever you're doing, I hope you're doing it with your friends and loved ones, and y'all are having a great time. And hopefully this is a good distraction if you're listening to it in the holidays. And if you're not, listen to it again during the holiday. We're on Facebook, The Unspoken Decade. Just Google us. We got over 10,000 followers now, like 8,000 likes. We're really having a good time over there. Things are really cooking. TheUnspokenDecade.com is where you can find a lot of articles. Jesse just wrote one about Night Strike.
Night Strike, sure.
Yeah, I can't remember. What was his name?
It's the 90s name generator again, Darry. It's Nightmare.
That's it. Nightmare. Sorry, I could see it in my head.
It's all good. It's all good. Nightmare.
Blurred out. I'm still an expert, I promise everyone. So Jess, we got a few recent articles there. And let's give a quick shout out to Speeding Bullet Comics. Matthew Price comes on here a lot, and is a really good friend of the show, really good friend of the page. If you want some comic books, you can find them on the web, svcomics.com, or find them on their Facebook page. Ships all over the nation and is available in one convenient location in Norman, Oklahoma.
That's right. That's right. Hey, if you're listening to this here podcast, most likely you are listening on the Source Material Comics feed, part of the W2M network, and we appreciate that. We have all sorts of great shows on here. This one being Unspoken Issues, where we focus on 90s comics, and we have quite a few holiday specials we're talking about. The aforementioned Sleepwalker special, where myself, Chris Armstrong, and Evan Bevins got together and talked about that. Also, these guys joined me for the Marvel holiday special from 1996, and there was a lot of fun discussing what the events that happened in that book, too. So please feel free to check that out. And the Source Material Comics podcast as well, where it was just comics of any era. And recently, I think Mark and I are talking about, my goodness, Not All Robots, my Mark Russell Castle. That was a fun book. That's probably going to be releasing here pretty soon, so look for that in the archive. And, of course, Snap Material, where if you play the mobile Marvel card game Marvel Snap, Evan Bevins and I will usually drop something once a month to kind of give you an idea of what's happened and what's about to happen and what fun we all have doing that game, playing that game. So
use the Punisher. That's my tip.
Use the Punisher. He's very, very effective. That is all we got. Again, happy holidays, ladies and gentlemen. That's Dean Compton. Over there's Darry Wade. I'm Jesse Starcher. Have a good one. Bye-bye. Thanks for joining us. Unspoken Issues is part of the UnspokenDecade.com, the home for 90s comics, blogs, and podcasts. Unspoken Issues also has a Facebook group you can join if you are interested. Just search the Unspoken Issues podcast and request to join. All of this would not be possible without W2Mnet.com and the Rattlich and Broadcasting Network, so make sure to seek them out for more podcasts. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please feel free to share, and we look forward to entertaining you again soon.